Hello, everyone, and welcome to another chat with Matt. I think that's what I'm going to name these chats now. And I'm here with Bernie Wales from the Leasehold Group, who I'm really pleased can join me this evening. We're going to talk about leaseholds. So, Bernie, welcome, and thanks so much for joining me this evening.
Thanks for the invite. It's great to be here. Wonderful.
Well, as we were just saying off camera a moment ago, I deal with a lot of leaseholds in Reading, and I've never met a single happy leaseholder. So when I came across your Facebook group and then your website and the work you do, I thought this would be a really useful conversation for a lot of my clients and people who I know are watching who are involved in leasehold or in some form or other. So yeah, hopefully we can pick your brains and everyone can learn something about the beloved leasehold. So can you give us a 30-60 second rundown of what your work is within the leasehold domain?
My work originally started in the world of property management, so blocks of flats and estates of blocks of flats. Started my first company back in 1984, before you were a twinkle in someone's eye, I suspect. And I built up a business from scratch until it was managing around 10,000 units in M25 area. Sold it to 4 of my staff, and then went on from there. In recent times, I've sort of stepped back from the coalface of property management, so to speak, and I do more in the way of consultancy, leasehold advice. I run that Facebook group that you mentioned called Leasehold Advice. And I generally try to help people with their leasehold inquiries, whether they're a leaseholder, property manager, freeholder, landlord, or whatever. Leasehold is one of those subjects that nobody seems to quite understand, and there's always lots and lots of questions. So I just try and answer them as best I can in non-legal gobbledygook. That's what I try to do.
Yes, which I think the world needs less legal gobbledygook. And I think I will link your Facebook group because I found that a really useful resource, and there's so much content on there, which is brilliant.
Okay.
And being in Reading, leasehold affects most of my clients, blocks of flats. No one likes their managing agent. As you said off camera, the grass is never green enough. And people there always seems to be something not quite right. But the leasehold reform, I've done some reading on this, and I know the Ground Rent Act came into play last year. What's the end goal of the leasehold reform as you see it, or what's happened and what's going to happen?
Well, the main focus, I think, from the government point of view, and generally across Parliament, is to make life easier, simpler, cheaper for leaseholders.
Yeah.
Which in some ways is surprising, because a lot of MPs and certainly a lot of lords are freeholders and landlords. So, it's sort of, in a way, shooting some of them in the foot. But the main problem, I would say, with leasehold is that it's a very old system whereby you rent a flat for an awfully long time, 99 years, 125 years or whatever. You pay a ground rent, which is not an awful lot of money generally, 100, 200 pounds, something like that per annum.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, you pay a service charge collectively with all the other leaseholders for maintaining the building. And the main problem with a lease is that, that 99 years, 125 years sounds like an awful long time, but it wears away and gets shorter and shorter. And there comes a point where actually that gets quite painful, and you can't mortgage the flat, etc., because the mortgage company is not just looking at the value of the flat now in relation to what they're going to lend you, but at the end of that mortgage, in say 25 years, how much unexpired term of your lease that you've got left. So it's quite a complicated area, and with all respect to estate agents, they don't necessarily explain it too well. And I suspect that's because the vast majority of estate agents don't really understand it. I mean, they start off by saying, come and buy this flat. Well, you're not buying the flat at all. You're buying a bunch of papers called a lease with a whole load of rules and regulations and do this and don't do that, etc. And, you know, all of that is complicated and boring, frankly. It doesn't help to sell a property. So I can see why estate agents shy away from it. And so there are an awful lot of problems with leasehold, an awful lot of forums, a whole load of county court case law, tribunal law, etc. And Parliament wants to simplify things. Now, back in 2002, there was something arrived called the Common Hold and Leasehold Reform Act 2002. And it brought this new type of tenure called Common Hold, where everybody would own their flat, in inverted commas, their common hold unit, in perpetuity. They wouldn't have this lease term that would wear away to nothing. They would own their flat forever.
Right.
And the common hold system would give you that sort of legal interaction between the various flats so that the whole building could work properly. Now, that didn't go down very well with developers in particular who were building flats, because common hold has no ground rent. There is no income stream for a freeholder because there is no freeholder.
Sure.
And developers therefore stuck with leasehold because it gives you that ground rent income, and then you can bunch all of that ground rent income. It has a capital value, and therefore you can sell that income stream to a freehold investor. And that adds to your developer bottom line for your development. So they all stuck with leasehold. Now, the number one leasehold reform was the Leasehold Reform (brackets ground rent close brackets) Act 2022, which came in February 2022, but was made working, enabled on the 30th of June. And that means that all leases from that date have to have a zero ground rent, what they call a peppercorn in legal gobbledygook terms. Now, that gives you a level playing field with common hold, because there isn't that ground rent income which the developer can collect up and then sell to an investor. So from that point of view, the incentive to stick with leasehold has disappeared. So that's the number one thing that government have done. And they're looking at other things that could be leaseholder friendly. Nothing yet has hit the parliamentary starting line, so to speak. No. So nothing's going to arrive tomorrow. But one of the things that they want to change is lease extensions. So, as I was saying earlier, where the lease runs down and you get to 80-something years, that's the time when people start to get interested in lease extensions and wanting to get lease extensions. And at the minute, you can do an informal lease extension with your freeholder. You just have to speak to them, chat with them, agree a sum of money, and you will get your lease extension. Every freeholder will give you a lease extension, provided you give them enough money. The problem normally is that the freeholder wants more money than the leaseholder is willing to give. And so it doesn't always work. So there is the statutory route, whereby you can use the law to serve a notice on your freeholder, requiring them to give you a statutory lease extension. Once you serve your notice, a Section 42 notice, there's a timetable kicks in, and unless you've done something stupid from a legal point of view, then you get your lease extension in that timetable. Now that gives you an additional 90 years, 90 years to your existing term. So you're you're 99 years from, I don't know, 2000 will become 189 years from 2000.
Yep.
Or your 125 years lease would become 214 years.
Yeah.
So that's what it gives you at the minute, plus 90. And it changes the ground rent from whatever it is in your existing lease down to 0. Very good. You read my mind. Now, one of the reforms they want to do is change that plus 90 to plus 990.
Yes, right.
Making it a virtual freehold, you know, a forever type thing.
Yeah.
Now, that additional 900, you're not going to get for free, but that additional 900 is more than 90 years away. So the present day value of that additional 900 is a long way away and therefore has a present day small value.
Yeah.
So that 990 will cost you a little bit more than 90, but not 10 times or 11 times. So that's the number one thing that they're wanting to do. Hasn't hit the starting blocks yet. Another thing that they're talking about is abolishing what they call marriage value.
Yes.
Now, that is something whereby in the valuation formula for a lease extension, they compare the freeholder's value in the lease before the extension and after the extension, and the leaseholder's value in the lease before and after the extension. And you do a bit of number crunching and you get something called the marriage value. And at the minute, if you've gone past that 80-year mark, so 79 years, 364 days, then marriage value kicks in. And you do your number crunching and half of that marriage value presently is added into the lease extension premium. So at 80 years and a day, the premium is whatever it is. And then 2 days later, it jumps up because you have this marriage value incorporated into the pricing. Now, what the government want to do is abolish marriage value. Every leaseholder in the country will shout, hooray. Every freeholder in the country will be running to the courts to say this is, it's just not on. You know, we can't have this. It's interfering with existing contracts. It touches upon human rights, etc., etc. Now, that is going to have a big, they've already started fighting about it, and it's not even reached the starting blocks. So that, I think, is going to be contentious. I think it's going to be fought all the way along the line, whereas things like changing 90 years to 990 years has generally got all parties' support and will be pushed through. So that's, I think, the first two things that are obvious that leaseholders will hear about. Another one is to do with the restrictions on when you can take over the management of a block of flats or buy the freehold of a block of flats, what they call enfranchisement.
Right.
Now, at the minute, in simple terms, with all of those sorts of things, you need to get 50% of the leaseholders involved.
Sure.
Often that's a problem. I mean, if you're in a flat above a shop, you can't do it. And the building doesn't necessarily qualify there because there's a commercial element there. But in any event, as anybody will know, getting a whole bunch of leaseholders to agree on anything, in fact, getting a whole bunch of human beings to agree on anything is difficult. And so there are a whole load of circumstances where unhappy leaseholders just can't get right to manage or just can't get to buy the freehold through right to enfranchise because they just can't get enough people to join in.
Sure.
So they're looking at changing that to tweak some of those percentages and perhaps change it from we need at least half the people to agree to something like we need a percentage to disagree. So we can do this unless a bunch of people disagree.
Sure.
So again, that might make things easier, and probably we'll have all party support as well, depending upon the percentages involved there. And another aspect, if I'm not boring you already,
oh, this is great,
is costs. Leasehold is complicated. Going to the county court is frightening and complicated for leaseholders. Going to the first tier tribunal is frightening and complicated. And there are costs involved. And what the government wants to do is to minimize those costs, or maybe put a ceiling on those costs.
Sure.
Because freeholders, because they've bled leaseholders dry through squeezing all of that ground rent out of them, are rich bastards, and therefore they can afford to employ solicitors, barristers, etc., to fight leaseholders. And quite often they will ask for their costs to be paid by the losing party. And too often leaseholders are the losing party because they don't know the law, and they haven't got a specialist solicitor, and they haven't got a barrister on their side, etc. So government is looking at, well, maybe we make it a condition of these processes that there is a cap on costs that freeholders can be paid, maybe £500 or something like that.
Yeah.
So that it makes it much more of a level playing field for leaseholders to enter into battle with these powerful freeholders. Equally, to make it more difficult for freeholders to use the law to unfairly penalise leaseholders and use the law to their advantage. All of these sort of proposed leasehold reforms are designed to make life fairer, more equitable, less costly, etc., etc. So, you know, watch this space, really. We've only had the one act arrive at the minute. There is a whole load more proposed. If we get a housing minister that stays in post for longer than a few weeks, then maybe some of these things will come along. Yeah. Michael Gove, the present one, who's sort of come back round and is Secretary of State for the second time, seems to be a bit of a man on a mission and gets things done. So fingers crossed there will be some things done and we'll get some leasehold reform coming along very soon.
I hope so, because everything you've just described there to me seems very fair, and I'm very glad that things are moving in favour of the leaseholder here, because it seems to me all leaseholders feel like they get terrible value for money and they all feel shafted in their own homes. And it's, even though they're not technically their own homes, they are their own homes. But
I agree. And there is a feeling amongst leaseholders that they are hard done by, that they are, and a lot of them are sort of in victim mode, if I could put it like that. You know, the system is gearing up against us. It's all written in legal terms and, you know, the world hates us and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A lot of that, I think, starts from not understanding.
Yeah.
People go into buying flats, buying leases, without the understanding. And as I said before, estate agents don't quite explain it to them. Conveyancing solicitors don't necessarily explain it to them. And particularly the online, you know, pay a cheap conveyancing fee, etc. You pays your money, you get your choice, you know. And if you're only going to pay 250 quid for your conveyancing, you're not going to get a solicitor who's going to sit down and read all 50 pages of your lease and then sit you down and have a Zoom call or something like that for an hour and explain it all to you. It's just not going to happen. So leaseholders, I think, are victims of their lack of education. Sure. And really should go and educate themselves as to what leasehold is all about. and understand the contract that they've got themselves into. And there's a lot of stuff in leasehold which is legal, but not necessarily fair. No. And leaseholders come from the point of view of life should be fair. And frankly, life isn't. And, you know, they should learn about leasehold so that they can fight their own corner and get what they deserve. And it's not normally the fault of managing agents. You know, managing agents are an agent. They're acting on behalf of a freeholder. Some of those freeholders are wicked and get blood out of a stone. But a lot of them aren't. They just use the law and run a business and do it very well. And managing agents convey a message. And a lot of those, I would say the vast majority of managing agents are good managing agents and try and do a damn good job. Yeah. There are some out there that are shocking. There are some out there that are rogues. And there are some out there that are fraudulent. But that's a really, really little percentage out of the vast majority of managing agents. So I think leaseholders shouldn't blame the managing agent. They should try and communicate, and they should educate themselves and understand so they can communicate better. And then use the law to get what you deserve and put right anything that is wrong. You know, it isn't that difficult when you understand a little bit about it, you know?
Yeah, I think there's a development near me, and I saw a breakdown of the annual costs for the year, the projected costs and the actual costs. And once I saw it tallied up, I thought, actually, yeah, it's not, none of these are particularly onerous. It's just a lot of money to look after lifts, to look after communal gardens, etc., etc. So what can
you say, you know, that block over there pays half the service charge that we do, therefore we're getting ripped off. Well, not necessarily. They may be getting half of what you're getting. You know, you've got a lift, a swimming pool, a gymnasium, etc., etc. Over there, they've got a front entranceway with a light and an intercom. They haven't got a swimming pool. They haven't got a concierge or whatever, you know. So service charges and what you pay is not what to look at. It's what do you get for your money? What comprises that bottom line arrangement? And then, is that cost effective? Are you getting a good service, etc., etc.? So you've got to look into it a little bit and see what's what. You know, it's like an estate agent. You can pay half the price for an estate agent and you will get half the service. But if you pay a good fee for a good estate agent, you will get a wonderful service.
Absolutely.
I could make an avocado, and, you know, we know what we're talking about, you know?
Exactly. I'm glad you said it. It sounds more sincere coming from you than from me.
It's true, though. You pay your money, you get your choice. And, you know, if you pay a cheap amount of money, you'll get an appalling service and a bad result. Pay the right amount of money, get the right service cost effectively, and no stress.
And obviously moving home, dealing with leases, dealing with estate agents is not something most people do very often. So I'm really passionate about getting as many resources out there for people to call upon as and when they need it. And I think a lot of the leasehold clients I've dealt with, it's been their first sale. So they've bought a house, maybe with Help to Buy. It's usually a flat. And then they come to sell it, and there's, you know, maybe they haven't built as much equity on top of all the leasehold issues that come with it as well. So, yeah, I think the resources like you have on the Facebook group are just really, really valuable. Because it's a minefield, I think, for leaseholders to try and navigate. As you say, people can get into it without necessarily knowing everything.
Indeed, yes. I mean, in an ideal world, you ought to have an estate agent that tells you everything about leasehold and what you're getting yourself into, and then a conveyancing solicitor that does the same, so that you enter into that purchase in the full knowledge of what you're doing.
Yeah.
But Life isn't always perfect. And therefore, you sometimes get leaseholders who purchase their lease, buy their flat, and don't realize what they've got themselves into. But that's not too late. You can still educate yourself and find out what's what. You can do it bit by bit and learn with your particular problems and your particular situation. You know, how can I deal with this? How can I make life better? What do I need to do in order to find out information and get a better deal? So all of that can be done. It's just a case of looking, Googling, you know, etc., and asking questions.
Absolutely. So you mentioned a few times about estate agents not helping, and what I'm keen on doing and what the Avocado Network is trying to do is make the whole process of dealing with an estate agent simpler. So you have one agent. I'm on my mobile for my clients the whole way through. I'm there to help the process, not be a nuisance like I think a lot of agents are. Obviously, the new, I can't think of the name of it. We're now putting the leasehold and the ground rents on all of our adverts as standard, which I was doing anyway. But I think this is good now, just for that transparency. People know what they are inquiring about, because I think agents purposely didn't put it on the advert before because they were thinking, oh, we'll get people in, and then we'll.
I really can't see the point of doing that from an estate agent point of view. What's the point of getting people in, getting them hooked, getting an offer from them, getting that accepted, getting solicitors involved? You get 2 months down the line and then it all falls apart because of all these things that come out of the woodwork. Crazy. Why not tell them up front? You know, you are buying a lease. It was 125 years from whatever the date was, which means you've got X years unexpired. There is a ground rent to pay, which is X or Y, and there's a service charge to pay. But don't look at the bottom line of the service charge, look at what's involved. So if an estate agent, one, had a copy of the lease and got those points out of it, two, got a copy of the service charge budget for the current year, then you could see what is in that service charge. And then you can explain it to those potential purchasers on day one. That is being a helpful estate agent, and means that people are going to move forward from that front door, so to speak, in the knowledge and not get frightened off 2 months down the line. So you won't have sales falling through and you have to start all over again. That's, you know, from a estate agent point of view, why do all the work over and over? Just do it properly once, which you at Avocado do, which is great to see. It's very refreshing. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, yeah, it's avoiding. I think the statistic is 1 in every 3 sales falls through statistically. Which
I bet it's more than that if you looked at the difference between freehold sales falling through, freehold houses, etc., and leasehold flats falling through. I think you'd probably find that leasehold flats is a higher percentage.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting to see, you know, from your own statistics, how many don't fall through compared to other estate agents out there who don't do such a good job.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We're starting to work with a 20CI, the largest data capture company in the country, from what I understand. It's really interesting. You can pull the statistics and get really granular on all of the data to do with agency. So I think we'll be having some data coming out on that in the next few months. But what else were we going to talk about, Bernie? I signed your petition.
Thank you very much.
I saw you had a petition, regulate agents. Can you tell us a little bit about where that came from and what it's about?
It came from a blog post that I put onto my website. It must be probably 18 months ago now. And I entitled it rather provocatively, Managing Agents Are Crooks. and I got a lot of social media feedback from
Nice.
that. And it was to do with a block managing agent in Hendon, North London, who basically was robbing people blind by carrying out major works on blocks of flats, instructing companies that were run by his wife and I think it was brother-in-law and et cetera, at highly inflated prices and stuff like that. And really was what I would call a rogue. And one of the problems I found was that when I reported this to ARMA, the Association of Residential Managing Agents, of whom this agent was a member, it was really difficult to get them to listen to me because I wasn't the client of the managing agent. And normally complaints come from the client. Now, fortunately, I know the chairman and a lot of the board of ARMA quite well. And so I was able to get them direct, so to speak, by their own private mobiles. And I was able to move them forward, nudge them forward. And eventually that ARMA member was thrown out. And the individual director that ran that company, still runs that company, was a member of IRPM, the Institute of Residential Property Management. And I followed through the same process there, and he got kicked out of IRPM as well. But my thought process was it shouldn't be this difficult to get rid of bad guys from the industry. No. Because ARMA wants them to be good guys. IRPM wants them to be good guys. All the property managers out there that I know are professional and want only to have good guys out there. So why are we having this system whereby rogues can hang on for so long?
Yeah.
So, and also the leaseholder feedback was positive. And, you know, I got social media thanks, which was unusual for me. I normally get a load of abuse for being freeholder friendly. But anyway, I thought, well, why not have a petition? So I looked on the government website as to how you do that, and it was fairly easy to do. So I picked up upon the government report that Lord Best had done. He'd looked into regulation of property agents, that's managing agents, estate agents, letting agents, you know, anybody really that handles client money and other people's money.
Yep.
He'd done a long report on that. And what he had recommended was a system basically similar to what they've already got in the Republic of Ireland, whereby firms are regulated for various activities. So Avocado would be regulated for estate agency, etc. And alongside that, individuals would be licensed for their particular activity. So estate agent or letting agent or property managing agent or service charge accountant, whatever it might be. And so anybody working in the field would be individually allowed to carry out whatever activity within a firm that carries out a whole bunch of activities.
Sure.
But the government hadn't moved forward on this. Didn't seem to be a priority. And at the time, it was in the sort of fallout of Grenfell, health and safety, a whole load of more urgent things, you might think.
Yeah.
But as time goes on, I think that that particular train is going down its path, and regulation, I think, could move forward now.
Yeah.
So I started up this petition, and have been promoting it on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, etc. And the word is gradually spreading. I think we're up to 2,300 and something now. We've got to get to 10,000 for the government to do an official response to that petition. So maybe if we could put a link in the comments or whatever down below this, People could go and sign that petition if they think it's a worthwhile thing to do, and then share it on their Facebook or social media so that other people could sign as well. That would be really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you'll get some support from the Avocado group for that, because that's something, again, just on a mission to try and improve the standards. And I couldn't believe when I got into this business 6 years ago that there wasn't regulation. I was at a small office and they said, "Hey, Matt, we've got a valuation appointment, a market appraisal appointment, as we now call them," and said, "Oh, off you go." Don't I need to do any exams? Don't I need to do anything? No, just, see what next door sold for, see what one down the road sold for. And I still don't think the distinction is made clearly enough. I am not a valuer. I am a marketing person. And I have to remind clients that sometimes. My advice is marketing advice. The bank will come around and send a valuer at a later date. So, yeah, that distinction.
It is. And I think estate agency, lettings, block management, all of those really are now getting to the point where they should be seen as a profession, and the people in those particular industries should be trained, should be regulated, and should have a certain standard of knowledge and professionalism of truth. Now, I know that's not a problem for you or anyone at Avocado. But it is all too easy for anyone to just set up as an estate agent, set up as a letting agent, set up as a managing agent. You don't have to pass any exams or qualifications or whatever. You can just start, which is wrong. You're dealing with hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of people's money. Yeah. It's crazy. And I think, it really should be regulated and professionalized. There are good people out there and they should be recognized for what they do.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we'll put a link to the petition down below in the comments so we can get some support.
Thank you.
So we're 25% of the way there. We're going to get to the 10K. And that they have to discuss it, don't they, in Parliament?
They do, yes. And I think once they do that, they will see or be reminded that actually you've got Lord Best's report there, which in a lot of words explains why this is a good idea and why reinvent the wheel. They've got it over there in Ireland. Just replicate it and carry on. Yeah. ARMA will support it, IRPM will support it, RICS will support it, etc. ALA. They will all support it. It's just a case of having Michael Gove or whoever say, right, let's press the go button.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm conscious of your time, Bernie. Thank you so much for all of your snippets of wisdom in here. I know certainly lots of my clients will find this useful, and other people watching. What does final question, I want to ask you, what does leasehold utopia look like? We're here in 10 years, the leasehold reform has happened. What's the biggest shift? What's the biggest change?
I don't think I'll be around when we've got to that point. Leasehold change comes slowly, and I'm not getting any younger. But I think it would be good, I think utopia will be when on the professionals side, it is regulated, it is a profession, and everybody acts in a professional manner in the same way as doctors and solicitors and surgeons, etc. And on the customer side, if I could call them that, there is a greater degree of understanding, and they go into it with their eyes open, they educate themselves, they learn, and then they communicate in a professional manner with the professionals. I think that would be great. I think the us and them fighting that happens on social media and in the world generally, it is a shame, because we're all human beings. We could all do better. But there's an awful lot. 99.9% of the people out there are good guys, and you should treat them as such on both sides of the fence. In fact, it shouldn't be sides of a fence. We're all in the world of leasehold and property, etc. So let's all try and make the whole thing work better.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, because we need leasehold, don't we, in some form. We can't just have, you know, someone has to do the arranging of the...
They do. And even if freehold comes in tomorrow, leasehold is not going to go away overnight. It will take a couple of generations for that to dwindle away and for common hold to take over. But I've often said it before, property management is easy. It only becomes difficult when you put people in there. You know, the building isn't a problem. It's the people. And whether it is estate agency, lettings, property management, or whatever, the people cause the problem, because that comes down to imperfections, a lack of knowledge, etc., etc., because we're all human beings, you know. So I think we should all try and be a little bit more nice to each other and help each other out and learn a bit more, and the world could be a better place.
Yeah, I love that. And I think also, in my experience, the smaller blocks of flats, you know, your block of 4, I find people generally get on in those blocks if they have a share of freehold each and they meet up twice a year. I think it's harder to be an arsehole when there's only 3 other people you're dealing with. I think when there's a bigger block, maybe it's more falling out.
It is. And certainly in bigger blocks, you tend to get that sort of Captain Mannering character who, you know, who takes it over and is going to do good for the community. And then the power goes to his head and he gets to be a real pain in the rear end. You mentioned something there, 3 words, which estate agents really wind me up with: share of freehold. Oh dear.
Let's get into that.
Generally, share of freehold isn't share of freehold. It is a share in a company, and the company owns the freehold. Okay, so you have, I mean, you can get share of freehold where, you know, you and me could own a freehold in our personal names, and then we would have share of freehold. But generally, it's done via a little company, a resident freehold company or something like that. So again, estate agents could improve the way they describe these things by saying the freehold is owned by this little company, and that little company is owned by the shareholders, and those shareholders are the leaseholders of these flats. So you have a democratic way to run the freehold, run the service charges, etc., etc. And therefore you can make sure you have cost efficiency, etc. You are in control with your neighbours. You are in control of that managing agent. And that is a lot better than that block over there where they have this wicked freeholder who's just a bloodsucker, you know? So buy this flat, not that one.
How should I phrase it going forward? So I don't say
share in the resident freehold company, and the resident freehold company is X. You know, so find out which company that is, and point out they have a share in the company, which means they are a shareholder. They can attend the AGM, they can vote, and that company appoints the managing agent, etc. And if you're really willing, you could be a director of that company, and then you can be the megalomaniac that runs the whole show.
I will be very conscious of that going forward. Yeah, very good, very good.
But it is a good thing having a share of freehold, having that control of the freehold along with your neighbours means you are in control of the managing agent. You're in control of the service charge expenditure, etc. And that makes it much more democratic, much more efficient, etc. The managing agent is on your side. and therefore has to do a good job. Otherwise, their contract isn't going to get renewed next year. Whereas where you have, you know, a big industrial sized freeholder, then the managing agent is on their side, not on the side of the leaseholders. And that sometimes means there's a conflict there because they're not working for the people that are paying the service charges. So share of freehold is good.
Yeah, it seems to me that way. And I have this, me and my partner, we're looking at buying a place next year together. And I quite like the idea of living in a town centre, a 2-bedroom apartment. She hates it. She doesn't want to have to deal with anyone else. So she wants a freehold house. But I think maybe the takeaway from this conversation is that not all leases are the same. It's very important to dig into the granular detail of what you're actually getting for your service charge, because I think there is an assumption that, you know, all service charge is dead money, which I don't think is the case.
It isn't. And, you know, all leases they may be written in similar form, but they're all bespoke to that particular building. And if you go and look on YouTube, you'll see I have a catchphrase called "read the bloody lease." It's the golden rule, you know, whether you're on the property management side or on the leaseholder side, that lease is the rule book for running that particular building and the service charges and everything else. So you do need to go and read it. And it does deal with service charges. Service charges are a cost for maintaining the building. And even if you go and you buy your freehold house, you will have a cost of maintaining that building. It's not called service charges, but you still got to mend the roof, paint the outside, and everything else. It's exactly the same. A building is a building, and it costs money to keep it standing up. So whether it's service charges or your own money as a freehold owner, you still got to pay the money and maintain the building. And generally, the money you spend on maintaining the building, you will get back in the value of that flat or house when you come to sell it. You know, and people get really upset sometimes when, you know, there's some major works project coming along, exterior decorating, re-roofing, new lift, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But when you spend that money and you have a nice, shiny, well-maintained building and your flat is in it, which is equally nice and shiny inside, you will get a better price for that flat than the block next door where they have half the service charge and it looks tatty and horrible and they haven't maintained it and it's grubby, and who wants to go and live over there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Service charges are an investment in your future sale. So, you know, just make sure it's cost effective and the money's spent wisely.
So what can leaseholders do then? Because I can, off the top of my head, I can think of a few developments in Reading where the service charges are relatively high for blocks built maybe 20 years ago. What can leaseholders of those blocks do to kind of stand up, if you like, to their freeholder or managing agent? What can they do to help their position?
First thing I would say is look at the budget. What is in that service charge and why do you perceive it to be high? So compare it with another block that you think is lower, etc., and see what the differences are. For example, is buildings insurance included in the service charge or is that charged separately? Are there major works going on in the near future or now or whatever? Is there a reserve fund or a sinking fund? You know, if you're in the cheap years that lead up to an expensive year where there's a whole load of work being done, does that service charge include money being put away each year? So you're building up a fund so that when that horrendously expensive year comes along, you've actually got a pot of gold that you can use to spend on it. And your monthly service charge can stay the same because you've been contributing all along. So educate yourself as a leaseholder as to, well, what is this service charge? What's in there?
Yeah. And
then having done that and understood what's in there, speak with the property manager, communicate with that property manager about your whatever you don't understand or whatever your concerns are, if there is a resident director board, you know, it might have a right to manage company or a residence management company, or that resident freehold company we were talking about. You might have resident directors there, in which case speak to them about, well, I don't quite understand this. What, you know, why are we twice as expensive as that block down the road?
Yeah.
And have discussions and get that understanding there. Because what you want is not a cheap service charge. What you want is a cost-effective service charge. So the money is being spent on the right things in the right way at the right time. And you'll probably find that actually it's not an expensive service charge. It's a proper service charge where you are spending the right money on the right things and you're putting money away for a rainy day. You know, if you've got exterior decorating coming in 3 years and it's going to cost £30,000, well, if you're starting from zero now, you want to put 10,000 away for 3 years.
Yeah.
And the lift will be, probably needs major works in 10 years' time. So put money away for that, etc. Stairway decorating every 5 to 7 years, you know, etc. So put money away from it. And on that stairway decorating, well, even though it says in the lease you need to redecorate the hallways and stairs, well, if you guys look after it, do you need a complete redecoration, or can you do just the bit on the below the dado rail, because that's where the prams scrape and the bikes scrape all the way around the walls, but up the top and the ceiling is probably perfectly fine. You know, so look at that, you know, and from the occupier point of view, don't scrape your bike tires up the wall and etc., etc. You know, look after it as though it is your own home along with everybody else. So look after it, you know. Yeah. And if you look after it, your neighbours will look after it, and everybody will look after it, and it'll be a lot better for you and a lot cheaper for you.
Yeah.
You know, it's not rocket science; it's just common sense, really.
Yeah, but I think you make a good point, and it's that people can. There are things people can do rather than just complain about their service charge. They can look into it and actually understand exactly where the pounds and pence are going.
Yes, and if you start looking into it and you can't get to the information, then there are ways of getting to that information. You can serve a notice, etc., etc. So if you're getting stuck, go to Facebook, look up Leasehold Advice. You'll find the group that I run, post a little question on there, and we'll point you in the right direction, you know, so that you can find that information. And then when you've got the information, you can then have a discussion about it based upon facts rather than misunderstanding or they're just trying to rip me off.
Yeah.
Generally, they're not trying to rip you off. Generally, they're trying to do a good job in difficult circumstances. So find the facts and then have a discussion based upon the facts.
Love that. You're going to have half of Reading messaging you now, Bernie, on that group.
It's not a problem. I don't mind. I mean, I only started that Facebook group back in, what was it, 10 months ago? And we're now up to 1,500 members or something like that, and more coming every day. So, you know, if this suddenly gets me another 2,000 members on there, well, great. I'd like to convey all of that information to more and more people. So it's all good stuff from my point of view.
Excellent. Well, and I think it goes to show how much a forum like that is needed, because I know whenever me and Sophie have an issue with anything, it's straight onto the Facebook groups to see what we can find out. So a very useful resource. Fab. All right. Well, I'm really conscious of your time. Thank you so much for being so generous with it and for chatting. Anyone watching, message Bernie with all of your leasehold woes. Any final thoughts to sign us off?
I think if those who have been listening and watching have got questions that we haven't answered, put them in the comments below and we can have a look at that. And then maybe we can do another one and address specific things that maybe we didn't cover this time. And certainly when leasehold reform comes along or the law changes, Building Safety Act is another one that's going to be having a big influence shortly. You know, maybe we could do another recording like this and update everybody with the latest on whatever it is that's coming along. That would be great. I'd love to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. So put your questions, guys, down below, and we will answer them all at the next opportunity. So anyway, for now, Bernie, let's sign off. Thanks so much, and we'll catch up soon.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. Take care.
Much. Bye.